If you have ever been a fan of anything in the zombie genre, watched anything in the zombie genre, played anything in the zombie genre, there is something that sticks out like a sore thumb. And no, it's not a thumbless hand, explicit gore, or commentary that'll have you saying, "We live in a society." No, it's the word zombie, or lack thereof.
Don't say that. What? That? What? That? The Z word. Don't say it. Why not? Because it's ridiculous. All right.
So today, we are going to be asking, why does zombie media not say the word zombie?
What? Did you just say zombies?
Take a look out there. If those ain't zombies, what would you call them?
The idea of a zombie is so well known within popular culture that any and everyone knows simple facts about the zombie, what they are, what they can do, and most importantly, how to take them out. Zombies have been in every facet of media: books, comics, movies, television, video games, you name it. Zombies in most cases are the reanimated dead. They come back, they rot, they eat flesh and or brains, their bites and bodily fluids infect the living, and it takes removing the head or destroying the brain to completely kill them. Hell, we've seen those Walmart Willies wearing "Don't Get Bit" shirts at one point or another. Zombies are probably one of the most simple to know and easy to remember monsters in fiction, and if everyone knows about them, then they know how to fight them. With that, the threat loses a major sense of its lethality and danger factor, lest we think that survivors and society are too dumb. Don't answer that.
Boy, everyone is stupid except me.
Some media like having the aura of mystery surrounding the undead threat. The biggest example would be The Walking Dead. Throughout the series and its milk-to-death spin-offs, the survivors of this world most commonly label the dead as walkers, never once calling them zombies. The concept of the zombie does not exist in the Walking Dead universe. Series creator Robert Kirkman explains this detail in an interview with Conan O'Brien.
You went out of your way not to call them zombies. Why?
Well, zombie lore is very popular, and we wanted to avoid that notion of, hey, why isn't that character just, shooting that zombie in the head because it saw all those movies I saw?
Right.
And so we wanted to kind of give you a sense that The Walking Dead takes place in a universe where, zombie fiction doesn't exist. No one inside The Walking Dead has seen a Romero movie, so they can't get the rules from that.
Right.
We felt like having people not use that word would kind of separate it from that a little bit, make it a little bit more clear.
Original showrunner Frank Darabont even stated this: "We didn't want to use the term, feeling like it wouldn't exist in this world if zombie fiction didn't exist in this world. Basically, so characters couldn't compare the dead coming back to life to zombies in fiction and be prepared in that way. It helps the believability of this iteration of this incarnation of a zombie apocalypse. The walkers were overwhelming in the beginning as they blindsided society, but over time, the walkers themselves were not a draw for a threat in most cases. Those that survived long-term in this universe became accustomed to what zombies, walkers were. Everyone around was taking them out with ease and replacing the series draw with flavor of the season evil people. The progression and overstayed welcome of The Walking Dead is always going to be a prime example of this. So what comes from a threat that you know is slow, dumb, and easy to take out if prepared? Even if the threat isn't the conventional form of a zombie, having the knowledge of what one is definitely helps break the ice in ascertaining that kind of threat and how to go about it. So we have characters and a story avoiding the word zombie like the plague, possibly to completely eradicate the idea of a zombie in a fictional universe, or just to differentiate a franchise's brand of the undead to make them stand out as if the zombie multiverse has an ironclad copyright on the word zombie. With the latter, naming the zombie something else puts an emphasis on what the characters and their world decide to focus on of the attributes of the living dead. So, what terminology do some series use to switch things up? Let's go through some and see what and why. And we're going to start with the series that started this discussion. The Walking Dead has all sorts of names for its zombies. There's the walkers, there's biters, floaters, lurkers, lame brains, deadens, cold ones, skin eaters, rotters, roamers, geeks, monsters, creepers, not the Minecraft kind. Having different communities and pockets of people across the world use different words to describe the dead makes the universe feel more lived in. Instead of the undead having a uniform title they all somehow are referred to by every single person, as if there was a national bulletin way after TV and broadcasts went down, mandating how they should be named. While the predominant nomenclature for them will always be walkers, it's nice to season a universe with over a dozen ways to call them. Before zombies became the unifying term for the living dead, Romero's Night of the Living Dead had originally referred to them as ghouls, never once uttering the term zombie despite being the catalyst for the term. Having the undead come back to life as mindless creatures was not a new concept in any regard in 1968, but having them eat the flesh of the living in graphic detail was something new to wider popular culture. So, Romero referencing them as ghouls only seemed plausible, since the concrete universal definition for a ghoul at the time was a creature or entity that stalked graveyards and consumed flesh, but also meaning a greedy or gluttonous person in Arabic, where the term was originally derived from way back in pre-Islamic Arabia to define monstrous creatures that roamed deserts luring people astray. Whether ghouls actually exist or not can be left up for debate.
We're arguing about racism or whether or not ghouls exist or...
They do, though.
No, they don't.
No, they do.
You've never seen
Yes, I have seen them.
Romero even states, actually, I never called our zombies. That description appeared in an article in Cahir's du Cinema. They're zombies, it said. We originally thought of them as ghouls. So Romero didn't even play a part in coining the term for his series, with news reports in the film calling the cannibalistic dead ghouls. It just fits for these seemingly demonic apparitions floating out from cemeteries to be referred to as ghouls until eventually their monikers would change altogether. Also, in Day of the Dead, the soldiers commonly just call them dumb fucks. World War Z has soldiers dubbed the undead as Zekes, which carries over into their title in the World War Z games. Originating this term from armed forces, it's possible the term Zeke was just another way of shortening the word zombie down to the letter Z, but spicing it up with the phonetic spelling of military jargon. Zulu is the official letter for Z, so the term Zekes was probably coined quickly to avoid confusion with Zulu, maybe to go further and boil the infected populace down to zombie kind, or ZK to turn into Zeke, making proper jargon for us to differentiate the infected from mankind. I'd go one step further with how the movie adaptation makes the infected jittery and jolted in their movements, so Zekes being defined by how they tweak. State of Decay would take things to a more simpler fashion by calling them Zeds, with Zed being the British pronunciation of the letter Z. I do like this naming scheme, but in the grand scheme, not so much. It does not make sense for the game's setting. Zed being a British and or Australian colloquialism would fit if it were set in those countries, like, I don't know, ZombiU, but State of Decay is most likely centered around Trumbull County in Ohio. So for the population to uniformly call them Zeds makes no sense. It's not likely for Ohio dwellers to suddenly take on the sayings of the British. I could easily see them shortening the terms zombies down to Z's, but I guess them being called Zeds here is so we could just quote this on every kill.
Zed's dead, baby.
Comedies with something to say like to make a jab or two. Warm bodies refrains from the word zombie for the most part, preferring to call them corpses instead. While it's straight to the point, it also paints a better picture on how they are viewed, nothing more than dead bodies, reflecting the whole Romeo and Juliet motif. These corpses have the diminished capacity to think, feel, and retain memories, more so after eating the flesh of a living body. Corpses, as a term, accentuates how they are still technically people. Just like the concept of a zombie, they can be reanimated. And from there, how a warm body and a cold body can bridge the gap despite the cultures of the living and the dead being at each other's literal throats. And that's through necrophilia. To a more seriously toned flick, some zombie terms like to bring up their appetites. The girl with all the gifts makes sure you know their zombies are called Hungries. Zombies are typical of wanting to eat our pods. That's a given. And with the parasitic fungi turning most of humanity into rickety cannibals, we see a group of semi-carrier children that are experimented on to possibly find a cure. These semi-carriers are always restrained, and when they catch a whiff of human sweat or blood, they can whip into a feral frenzy, wanting nothing but to eat uninfected people, causing them to be insatiably hungry, just like their fully infected counterparts. When people are newly infected or the carriers start falling into these urges, these people will say how starved they feel, how hungry they are, attributing to their namesake. The Simpsons would follow suit in this naming scheme in its parody of 28 Days Later called Don't Have a Cow Mankind, where the zombies there are referred to as Munchers, both in terms of how the outbreak started from people munching down on tainted crusty burger meat, but also how quick their dead are prone to start munching down on people. Just a new goofy way to refer to zombies that hadn't been coined yet. Comics are not devoid of this naming scheme, but not for the purpose of differentiation or trying not to follow into zombie tropes, but for legality purposes. Back in 1971, in order to prevent excessive horror elements from being used in comic books available to all ages, the Comic Codes Authority mandated that the term zombie could not be used. To get around this, Marvel Comics had used the term Zuvembies, a term created by Robert E. Howard in 1938 for the short story Pigeons from Hell, taking out the O from the term zombies and putting in uve. Marvel would use these Zuvembies half a dozen times until the mandate was lifted in 1989, long before Marvel Zombies would become a thing. Anime is no stranger to avoiding the word that shall not be named, and the fan services of High School of the Dead takes Shaun of the Dead's Don't Use the Z Word to heart by referring to them as them.
This is like a disease caused by them.
Them.
The dead are attacking people left and right, but this isn't a movie or video game. That's why it's them.
Outright stating that everyone knows what this threat is, but simply choose to ignore the general term of the word zombie with nobody even stating it once, and go with a more ominous and blanket term to just call them. Later on in this series, a character even references this as being a brilliant move, as fighting something called them helps differentiate the dead from the living more by not actually giving them a title and making it easier to kill them. How many times can I say them in this part of this section? I don't know, you'll just have to ask them. The manga I Am a Hero that received a live-action adaptation falls in line with this diverse terminology, calling its own brand of zombies ZQN. The anagram in universe is described by the US military as Zero Qualified Nucleus, but this is not where the term originates from, since it originates from Japan. This is just America trying to give its own explanation to it, stemming from online discussion boards where Japanese referred to the dead as Zokyon, being a play on words for the Japanese term Dokyon, meaning delinquent or idiot. DQN sounds similar to Dokyon, so ZQNs are not too far off. So basically, zombies are a different form of delinquents in society by slang standards. The zombies of this universe are actually quite different as they retain decent intelligence and can even mutate rapidly, making them much more deadlier than zombies we are familiar with, making them delinquents even amongst the zombie archetype. If you think of zombies and arcades, you probably default to the classic House of the Dead. Ironically though, the game does not contain zombies at all. The creator wanted to avoid using the term zombie altogether for its undead people, preferring to call everything that you fight against as creatures. Considering the wide assortment of monsters, abominations, and more that you face off against, just saying you shoot zombies does not give the enemy variety much credit. But thanks to marketing, ads, and the media at the time referring to these creatures as just zombies, House of the Dead will always have the moniker stuck to them. They have even made jabs at this on some of their games, making fun of the term zombie. You could also argue the same case can be made for the reanimated corpses of Resident Evil, but who doesn't actually call them zombies? It wasn't until 4 that the debate started coming up. As the titles progressed, there were more mutants than anything else, even going down into vampires and more. But it all started from zombies and zombie-like accessories, and also just monsters. There are many games that use other terms. ZombiU, despite being aptly named Zombie, also dubs them as Blighters, named after the second blight pandemic that plagued Great Britain. The Fable series opted to refer to them as Hollowmen for being hollowed out husks void of any human life, but also the undead. Sunset Overdrive specifies them as OD or overcharged drinkers, as the zombies there are actually mutants transformed by a beverage, although the game actively tries to stop the protagonist from trying to say the Z word. Horror comedy Z Nation had a plethora of names its world gave to its undead denizens in a similar vein to The Walking Dead before it, most commonly calling them Z's, much like the Zeds from State of Decay. It's definitely a way to communicate quickly when you're trying to survive against zombies, and it just sounds cool, especially with the show name being Z Nation. And it also makes sense to call them Z's here because, you know, it makes sense since it is in America. Z Nation also calls them puppies and kittens as a way to make them seem harmless to people that are a little bit weaker-willed and just to be comical. Other terms thrown out during the series were deadheads, brain-dead freaks, resurrected by some cultists, and even infected. Which brings me to the other side of the spectrum when it comes to the zombie genre. Not all zombies are dead, despite most considering their key feature to be dead. But in some cases they can be living or dead for one generalized term that zombies can fall under due to their infection. And that is infected. And boy, there are quite a few. 28 Days Later was a mainstay in bridging the gap of zombies and infected. While in many franchises, referring to victims or dead as infected wasn't foreign of a subject, generally calling all of them infected and not just zombies or some deviation of that was quite different, differentiating how the infection is more of a subject to consider and how much more of a biohazard they are, especially with the rage virus, considering how fast and infectious it is, and this would bleed over into franchises going forward. The Last of Us refers to its infected as such. However, if they don't die, they will eventually mutate and transform into something called clickers, named after the distinct clicking sounds they make as they use echolocation to track their prey. Back 4 Blood follows the trend of the infected type, but instead assigned the term Ridden to these faux zombies, distinguished due to all infected being ridden with devil worm parasites populating their body. This naming convention also lends to how they can infect open water supplies, making them worm-ridden in the process. Planet Terror calls its non-zombie infected sickos as a simple way of just meaning how sick and disgusting they look from a toxin released by Project Terror. Days Gone also houses the infected, but calls them freakers or freaks for short. Due to their heavily diminished look and mutated nature, they somewhat resemble drug addicts or tweakers, mainly from their jittery behavior, loss of hair, and malnourished appearance. Giving the naming convention a rhyming scheme to go from tweaker to freaker, the mutations spurred by the man-made freaker virus mutated people and animals so much that they could be considered freaks of nature as well. And at the top of the pile, the king of infected, Left 4 Dead also falls in line with this. The green flu, borrowing from 28 Days and turning the living into mindlessly angry, infectious, and mutating infected. But the series plays with the terminology quite often, calling them infected, zombies, and even vampires, which circles us back around to the original point of the video. Not every ZCU is completely in the dark about zombies. Some series do have a history of zombies being in popular culture, so they prepare and fight accordingly sometimes. Some of the franchises I mentioned previously fall into this, like High School of the Dead, ZombiU, State of Decay, World War Z, The Girl with All the Gifts, and much more. When zombies do eventually hit, characters can reference the idea that their reality was now plagued with the popular concept of the zombie that was just fictitious before. Shaun of the Dead being the best example of this, as I showed at the beginning of the video, being in complete denial of zombies, and even Shaun outright refusing to use the term zombie when the dead are literally at their front door, with Shaun actively strategizing around them and Diane actively teaching the group how to act just like them. Both a commentary and a fun romp as people who don't have a clue navigate a threat that's known pretty well. Return of the Living Dead has Night of the Living Dead as a real movie in its universe that apparently portrayed real events. Characters will say zombies as references to the movie, despite the movie never saying zombie in reference to what they are facing, and characters will prefer to refer to the undead as cadavers, corpses, infected, and even people that have just gone axe crazy, most likely to portray how in denial everyone is over their own situation as the zombies start to expand. The Korean drama All of Us Are Dead has students saying that zombies are taking over and should act accordingly. Dead Rising follows suit in this. When Willamette Mall is first attacked, Frank West denies them being zombies at all, with even an elderly redneck dude telling him. Left 4 Dead actually uses the knowledge of zombies prior to dramatic effect in its Sacrifice comic. Zoe and her dad were avid horror zombie media consumers, so when her dad is subsequently bit, he tells her to shoot him before he changes. In the same comic, the remnants of the military reveal that Zoe is immune and most likely got this gene from her father. From what we gather, that because of her extensive knowledge of zombies prior, that she did not have to kill her dad as he was never going to turn in the first place, showing that for the first time, knowing about zombies prior actually worked against her. Zombieland knows zombies from the get-go and even wants to serve itself as the zombie survival guide in a comedic way for longtime zombie fans, much like Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. offering tips and tricks to survive as every character knows what they are and how to survive, even though most of the population is dead. By the second film, it even lampoons variations of zombies that eventually crop up due to mutations. And boy, oh boy, if there is one giant thing that is shared between many zombie franchises, it's giving names to special variants with differentiating abilities, shapes, sizes, and more. It does help movies and shows to try to stay fresh with its zombie threat to not let it stagnate, making new zombies as a result of outside stimuli and genetic transformation to add variety, with this most commonly being used in video games to make what you're killing become less of a slog over time. Now, there is a lot of different terms for these special variants of zombies, infected, or what have you. There is no way in hell I'm going to go in depth over every single term for zombie variants and mutations. But you know what? Here's a speedrun of one. There's a lot of specials out there, so we're gonna name them all. It's a Pokerap parody, and we're gonna miss a few, but try and keep up. Here we go! Human in their chest, or in their bust. They eat all the rest, or we'll burn them to dust. Hockey, ninja, homer, T-100, boomer, hunter, smoker, screamer, witch, tank, jockey, charger, spitter, thug, suicidal ram. Kill 'em, gotta kill 'em all. Special zombs! I search across the land, look far and wide. Shoot from a gun at something that died. Floater, butcher, drowner, wrestler, runner, shambler, crusher, slobber, butcher, mutator, ripper, clotter, juggernaut, bloater, feral, lurker. Kill 'em, gotta kill 'em all. Special zombs. Gas bag, bull, infector, bomber, booster, rat king, clicker, bruiser, viral, gas tank, goon, demolisher, toad, volatile, bolter, night hunter. Gotta kill 'em all, gotta kill 'em all. Gotta kill 'em all! Special zombs! Evolved, swarmer, bleacher, newt, brinker, reacher, crier, rager bear, sprinters, roamers, lurkers, climbers, protector, burners, cohorts, hybrids. An untold amount of specials or more to see. We gotta kill 'em all and commit battery. Pets, Walker King, Hawker, Wretch, Tallboy, Snitch, Ogre, Hag, Breaker, Gargantuar, CAT, Virus, Marston, Flood, Necromorph, Yo Mama! That's enough rapping for now. That about wraps up the explanation of why the word zombie isn't used and the many names of zombies in zombie media. Is there something I missed? I can't possibly cover every single minuscule change to zombie terminology, but I feel like we covered a lot of bases. If you want to add to this list, let me know in the comments. Thanks to Chago for editing today's video together, and thank you for watching. Shout out to my Patreons and YouTube channel members for donating to keep the channel going. Join my Patreon to see videos up to a week early. Be on this list already scrolling on by. Until next time, I'm Zekes, aka Wow Such Gaming. Never forget to stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay wow!